Christmas is a time when Christians believe a new light and a new hope was born into the world with the birth of Jesus. The most startling part of this was that this light and hope that presented itself came down in the form of a baby, one of the most vulnerable beings on our planet. And so it is that many of us have experienced times in our lives when we have encountered that vulnerable self. Some here may be in treatment at this time due to having been in unsafe, vulnerable situations, which you somehow managed to make it out of. And yet, even as we prepare for what might be potential hopes in our lives, maybe to stay clean, maybe to stay sober, maybe to work on those areas of our lives that have been holding us back and keeping us stuck. So there may be others in our lives who may themselves be struggling with the changes that we are hoping to live into. The third reading that we had before this message was taken from a devotional written by Marche Greer, who is the communications director of Black Lives Matter of the Unitarian Universalists. And it reads that sometimes people cannot seem to see beyond the superficial. Like looking at the cover of a book with all its scuffs and dents, rather than looking for the rich story inside the book. If a person sees only the dents, the scuffs, the empty alcohol bottles, the scars from abandonment or relationship abuse, they're not looking hard enough, and they're missing the miracle. If you see only your dents, scuffs, empty alcohol bottles, scars from abandonment or relationship abuse, then you are not looking hard enough, and you are also missing the miracle that exists within you. The human spirit has a resiliency that reminds us that when we think we're down, we still may have a little in our proverbial tank to keep us going, to keep us pushing through. And as I mentioned a lot, this can be reinforced when we have the support of a community behind us, a caring, thoughtful other or others to remind us that we're not done yet, even if we feel like we may be. It was that resilience that kept Mary and Joseph going, even having a baby in the stable because there was nowhere else to go. It was that resilience that led them to fleeing to Egypt after his birth, recognizing that Herod wanted to kill their baby and all other males under the age of 2. And even before the Christmas season, it was the resiliency of the Jewish people who, even when they did not have enough oil to rededicate their temple, they used what they had, and it led to the miracle of oil lasting for 7 days longer than expected, a total of 8 days, rather than the 1 day they thought it would last. Now that is important because sometimes feeling we don't have enough to give, or that we're not enough, and it might lead us to thinking, well, why bother? But remembering that even the smallest of actions that we take can lead to some of the biggest results. A baby born in poverty and in a stable, no less, becomes one of the biggest spiritual figures in history. No one told him or his parents, well, why bother? Or if they did, they didn't listen. 1 day's worth of oil, why bother lighting that? It ain't gonna do anything. But they did, and it led to it being a gift that they needed to bring their temple back to sacred space, the sacred space that it was meant to be after it was defiled. On Sunday, I was reminded of a powerful quote from Marianne Williamson, which reads, "A miracle is a shift in perception from fear to love, from a belief in what is not real to a faith in that which is." That shift in perception changes everything. When we begin to see ourselves not as the sum of the choices made by our use disorder or depression or anxiety or trauma, but we see ourselves beyond the labels or the shame, we may begin to experience a light and a hope, a shift in our perception, and we may begin to see the miracles that we are. So how are we a miracle? It begins with the simple words, I see you. How many of us have gone through times in our life when we look down, look away, don't see the person that may be in the room with us? Sure, we know they are there. We may even be looking at them, but we don't see them. How many of us don't even see ourselves for fear that the feelings that made us vulnerable in the first place might be too overwhelming, and so it's easy to stuff all that down and try and ignore it? And again, to quote Marche Greer, the greatest gift we can receive during this season is the permission to look into the mirror without grief or shame. We can look beyond the hurtful things people have done to us, or even the hurtful things we've done to ourselves, and know that our worth is not diminished by those things, and that our souls can live into the resilience and healing even after such potential brokenness. You see, as the miracle starts with us being able to see ourselves and see others, we begin to have the ability to make a choice to change the course that we might be stuck on. Men's courses will foreshadow certain ends to which, if persevered in, they must lead, said Scrooge. But if the courses be departed from, the ends will change. In the story of A Christmas Carol, Scrooge was oblivious to the course he was on. He didn't care that no one liked him, or that he isolated and didn't particularly care for others, or even himself. But once he was shown some of the situations which propelled him in the direction of becoming this person, his eyes were opened. It took time. But as he allowed himself to risk being vulnerable, risk feeling, rather than constantly stuffing and ignoring the hurt that he had been living into, he was able then to make a choice to depart from the course that kept him stuck, alone, isolated, and lacking in self-awareness. And as a result, the course of his life changed. What does it take to make a change? Just a small shift in perception, in behavior. It could be something as small as saying hello to the person next to you, or smiling at others as you pass by, or doing an act of service. Or even to begin looking at yourself in the mirror and saying, I see you. And then following that up with, I love you. Now, some of you may be thinking, that's totally out of my comfort zone. But again, it begins with small steps. Start by simply looking at yourself in the mirror, not avoiding your own eye contact. Vulnerable much? Indeed, it is for many people. But as you begin to do this, the shift in perception will begin to take form. The miracles will begin to take form. And with time, you'll hopefully want more of the miracle. And that will continue to propel you on a path that leads you towards connection and hope. And this leads us right back to vulnerability. There's no shame in what we've experienced in our lives. Only lessons to be learned. Sometimes bittersweet feelings that we will still feel, but also a recognition that it only takes one small change with openness and vulnerability for us to begin to change the course that we are on. and move even closer to the hope that can begin to grow once we have made that choice. And so for this Hanukkah and Christmas season, I wish you the ability to see yourselves as the miracle that you are, to learn to be open and carry kindness in your hearts, and to move towards a source of hope that can teach you to honor and love yourself. And in the immortal words of A Christmas Carol, as Tiny Tim observed, God bless us everyone. Amen.